Welcome to Forward Physio, the show that gives you high-quality information about injury and rehabilitation, performance, and health. My name is Noah Mandel, and I'm a resident physiotherapist from Toronto, Canada. I created this podcast to provide you with educational content, not medical advice. Please seek advice from a qualified healthcare professional if you are currently dealing with a health-related concern. If you enjoyed the podcast, please consider leaving a review. I would deeply appreciate it, and you would also be doing your part in helping the podcast grow so that we could provide this information to more and more people. Hello everyone, welcome back. Today's show is a conversation that I had with the one and only Aaron Kubal. There's a pretty good chance you already know who Aaron is if you're listening to this podcast. Aaron is a chiropractor who has hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and TikTok. They follow him for his videos where he myth busts common claims that people make on social media or provides evidence-based recommendations for people that are in pain or recovering from injury. Aaron is not your common chiropractor. He holds no punches and he tells it like it is. Most of the time, accounts with really large followings promote a lot of misinformation, but Aaron is one of the good guys and he is a super trustworthy source who promotes a lot of valuable information. You'll learn a lot more about him in the podcast, but I just want to say I had this conversation with him a while back, way before I had fancy podcasting equipment, so my audio isn't the best, but Aaron's is pretty good, and this is great because he does most of the talking because we're here to learn from him today. So, without further ado, I hope you enjoy. All right. I am here with Aaron Kubal, and we're here to talk about how fond he is about the field of chiropractic.
It's my favorite. I love it. It's my home.
So thank you for joining.
Absolutely.
So your whole slogan is sort of no cracky backy, and you're pretty well known on Instagram and TikTok for calling out some nonsense in the industry. And I know that you said in the past that you love helping people, you like what you do, but you don't care about the profession as much. So you are a chiro, but when did you sort of make that shift? At one point you wanted to be a chiro, but then at some point you decided to sort of go and choose your own path. So could you sort of walk us through that journey? When did that flip switch in your mind?
Yeah, well, first I would say, as far as the no cracky backy thing, I know that's my profile pictures, and I say that sometimes in videos, so people always associate that with me. I want to be clear, and I tell people this all the time. No cracky backy. I don't say that because I have a problem with it per se. Like, I don't give a shit if people crack backs. I only have that on there, and I recognize that it's terribly misleading. I only have that in my profile picture because I simply don't do it, and I'm a chiropractor. So that's inherently weird and interesting because I am telehealth only. So that's what I mean when I say no cracky backy. Like, I don't do any cracky backy, but like, I'm okay if people want to crack a back or whatever, just so we're clear. I have other problems with it narrative wise, as you know, but that's beside the point. As far as the other stuff, what point is that what you said? What point did I kind of flip the switch with? And not caring about the profession, blah, blah, blah. So for me, that's definitely gotten me in hot water before with people within the profession. I've never understood that. Like, just because you are part of a profession, like you're in a profession, it doesn't make sense to me that you are like indebted to it. You know what I mean? Like, I am not like a chiropractic cheerleader. I feel like the people within the profession should be the profession's harshest critics and should be the ones who are demanding the most of the profession and taking responsibility first and foremost for the profession's shortcomings. Like, I feel like we have that responsibility, and we don't have that responsibility to the profession. We have that responsibility to the public, which is kind of my whole thing. When I always say people over profession, I've said that could be another tagline. I've said that so many times. But that really is where like my allegiance lies, and where a lot of like my rhetoric comes from, is that I feel like any profession. It doesn't matter if you're a chiropractor, a physio, a lawyer, whatever. Like there's so many examples I could list off. If you're a public servant and you provide, especially in healthcare, services to the public, like they're the top priority, not your own profession. If chiropractic went extinct tomorrow, so be it. I would be totally fine with that. Because I think the reason it would end up happening would be because the public would be better off. And if that's the verdict, then okay. Like that's how much I value just public health and people over this whole thing. So, that some definitely disagree there, and think that if you're a part of a profession, you like owe it your life, which is just horseshit. Like I don't. That just doesn't make any sense. Like what if PT went off the rails or further off the rails than it already is? Would you
that would be more accurate to say.
Go down with the ship, or would you speak up and be like, this is horseshit, let's like get it together? The people within the profession should be the ones who hold it to the highest standard. That just nothing outside of that makes any sense to me. For sure. What else did you ask? When did I shift my perspective?
Yeah, so at one point you decided to be a chiro.
Oh yeah, like there was a time, right? Yeah.
What made you want to become a chiro?
Yeah. So basically, I didn't know anything about chiropractic or physical therapy, which speaks to a lot to my ignorance as just a person in general, I would say. But I grew up in a lot of sports, and so aches and pains, injuries, whatnot. And we had a family friend who was a chiro, and so my parents would take me to go see him if I like pulled a hamstring or my shoulder hurt throwing or whatever. And he would always just like give me pretty good sound advice, help me figure out how to manage it, and get me back to playing and reassure me like as quick as possible. And I was like, I just thought that was cool, and I assumed that was what they all did. Like he would crack my back, like I think he cracked my back like twice, and I saw him for years.
Yeah.
So like that just assumed like that was how they all operated, and boy, that was not correct. And I literally just on that impression of chiropractic alone, I went into chiro school. So again, speaks loudly to my own ignorance. Didn't background check, didn't look into nothing, just said, nope, I thought that was cool, I'm going to go do it. So I started chiro school, and then obviously the rose-colored glasses started coming off, and I started seeing some weird shit, which I tried to buy into, actually very genuinely. Like I remember, have you ever seen the video, like the most viral chiro video of all time? Kid is like bent over, and it's that Dr. Ian guy from Australia. And by the end of the video, he's standing up straight and like vows that he's going to become a chiropractor. Like it's the most viral. Like I remember the fall that I was going into chiro school being sent that video by someone who I knew was already at the school. And he was like, you're about to be a part of the greatest profession and change so many lives like this. And like, I really there was a time when I really felt that way and thought that.
Yeah.
But I think some people just look harder into things than others maybe, or ask more questions than others. I don't know. But like, I couldn't accept, like I wanted to accept what I was being told, but I also, whenever that's happening, if I'm being told anything about anything, I have to listen to everything else too. And I remember like at the time, like my first year in chiro school, that Joe Rogan interview came out where he just roasted chiropractors. Like that really caught my attention. And a lot of my classmates like just, push that aside and like, he's an idiot, she's an idiot, don't listen to that interview, blah, blah, blah. But like, I was like genuinely fascinated with how much traction it got and how many people seemed to like actually hate us. And I just, the way my mind worked, and I think a lot of people's minds work, I was just like, there's got to be some reason they're saying that. And if I'm about to become this, like I would very much like to know what their argument is, because maybe I'm wrong. And that was kind of the spark that lit it. And then there were a whole bunch of other things that happened along the way that were, again, just peeling back layers of horseshit until I ended up what I am now, which is a very weird position I'm in, but I like it. So it worked out okay. But yeah, there were a lot of moments like that where it was just like, I wanted it to be this amazing thing that it was pitched to me as, and that I thought it was. But the more you dig, and if you're somebody who can't stop digging, the more you find, and it just at some point the scales just got tipped, I guess.
Yeah, and those rose-colored glasses sort of have to come off at some point.
Flying off.
That's really fascinating, actually, that you tried to believe it at some point, but that you couldn't. So
well, I mean, that's human nature, right? Like if you are that invested in something and your identity is like tied up into it, like you're gonna probably try to make it work, but to what end, right? Everybody's got their breaking point, their limit, and again, like I said, some people ask more questions than others. So I don't know.
Yeah. And to what you're saying earlier about just not being a cheerleader for the industry,
yeah,
and sort of just doing things your own way, in your own way, you've sort of figured out how to make it work. It's just, it aligns with your beliefs and your ideals, which are more grounded in reality than a lot of claims that Chiro typically thrives
at least the way we see it, right? At least the way we see it.
For sure, in our own echo chamber.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, found a way to make it work. Like I genuinely do love my job. Like I plan to do this for the rest of my life, like exactly as is. I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. I also just got very, very lucky. But I love what I do. I love the work that I get to do. And I'm like really it's so crazy because people ask me all the time if I regret chiro school, and like, I could definitely see why they ask, but I really can't. Things just worked out so well that I really can't say I regret it, even though like it seems like I fucking hate everything about it and am so critical of it. I ended up in a great position, so it's hard for me to say that it's something I regret. Like people will always be like, "Would you go and do it again, or would you change?" I'm like, I mean, it's okay. It's hard for me in good conscience to say I would go through chiro school again. Like that shit sucked, but I also don't have like a clear and obvious, like I would definitely rather be doing this, or I would definitely switch to this. Like I am genuinely happy with like how things worked out.
Awesome, man. I'm glad to hear it.
That's fuck cool.
Yeah. So, okay. People, first off, I want to just throw in this little caveat here. I'm a physio, and I feel like people might have this perception that throughout this podcast, we might be bashing on the field of chiropractic care.
I am.
Great, me too, in a lot of ways. But I just want people to know that physio is by no means perfect, and
I've made many videos about that.
For sure, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the claims and stuff that we disagree with. But they ask me all the time, do you believe in chiropractic care? That's what their perceptions of the public are. They're just skeptical.
Like lay people.
Yes, lay people, exactly. Like not necessarily healthcare professionals. And the answer to that question is it depends, because
the answer to that question is okay. It's not a fucking religion, so how can I believe in it? But yeah,
for sure. And it depends. Like, what are the claims that are being made? Who is the chiropractor themselves? Because there's great people and pretty crappy people in every industry, right? So if someone was to ask you that sort of question, a layperson, where do you go about answering that question? How do you navigate that conversation? Because you still have value to offer to people, right? As a chiropractor.
I like to think so. I believe in it's always a question of values, really. Like, and this was a conversation I had with a buddy of mine last week. Like, if your values don't identify with someone else's, you're just never going to agree on anything. And like my values are really staked in science and evidence-based practice and the ethics that are intertwined with that. And, like that sort of systematic approach to figuring out what's good and what's not. Like that's where my values are. So for me, I believe in that. Like I believe in science. And then basically however that shakes out into my scope of practice, that is how I practice. So that's kind of how I would answer that, I guess. But like some people, like I said, like some people, it's all about what your values are. Some people don't see the world that way. A lot of people's values are really, really hinged on their own personal experience and the things they perceive. And whether it's because they trust themselves over, what science is and does, or whether it's they just haven't been exposed to what's the alternative to my own perceptions. Like, I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of where my values lie. So that's what I believe in. And like, that can apply to the profession, because we do have a scope of practice, and within that scope, there's definitely, ways to apply science in a way that can actually help people, which is what I like to think that I do. And many of my colleagues within chiropractic who like actually like me and agree with me also do, and do very well. Yeah. So that's what I believe in, but like, that's not unique to chiropractic. That's the same with any sector of healthcare. It's evidence-based healthcare, right?
For sure. Yeah. So I think if we're coming at this from the perspective again of a layperson, and they hear, let's say they're watching this podcast and they hear that you're a chiropractor who only does telehealth, online care, and you don't crack any backs, for I think the vast majority of people, that's super confusing. And they'd be sort of confused at how you go about helping people that are in pain or injured. Yeah. So could you dive into that a little bit? Like, what exactly do you do with people online? How can a chiropractor possibly have care online?
Well, first of all, because people do ask me that, like when I'm at like just social gatherings, like a bar, or just hanging out with my friends, like, or people who have just met me, they will ask me like, you just talk to people on video calls and that's what you do. And I'm like, yeah. And I've answered it the same way for the last 2 years. And it's basically boils down to, within PT and chiropractic, the best value and thing we can offer somebody is just good quality advice and guidance. And I don't need to be next to a person to do that. I can do that over a video call. So I can give them the best thing that we have to offer in my knowledge and communication skills through a video call. And then if people are still scratching their head, I'll take it one step further. I'm going to be like, I'm the one who's the badass here. I don't even have to fucking touch people. I'm still getting the same outcomes as everybody else. Like, that should tell you something. If I am still in business and I'm still quote unquote getting people better, just like anyone else is, then that probably means something. Not so much about my magical approach, but that the magic in anyone's approach probably has more to do with our ability to communicate things and guide people through a difficult time in their life, rather than any special thing we can do to them. So that is usually how I answer that, both for professionals and for lay people when they ask. And then my own approach, it is like, I can go into the details of it if you want, but it is really just advice, guidance, listening to people, helping them make sense of a difficult situation if it's appropriate to try and help them make sense of it, and then trying to give them a sense of direction. And if it's not appropriate to like do those things, refer them to somebody who'd be more better equipped to handle their situation. But like, so much of it really does just boil down to communication and building relationships with people. And I like the constraint, the challenge of it too, because like, I don't have, you can make a connection with somebody with like touch and with like, the different interactions that happen in in-person communication. And now you're a little bit constrained to a computer screen. Yeah. I like challenging myself to be able to kind of connect to people on that level, and still build a trusting relationship that way, even though I'm nowhere near them and I'm just a guy on a screen trying to guide them through a situation that's making them really scratch their heads and throw their life off the rails. I think that's a really cool role to play. So as far as it is just advice and guidance. Sometimes it involves exercise. A lot of times it doesn't. If you're familiar with CFT, like, it's obviously very similar to that. I'm not out here following it step per step. I'm not out here like doing, what is it? What do they call it? Something experiments or something like that. I'm not out here doing like this step for step approach, but like, it's just very similar to things like that you would see.
Right. The CFT being cognitive functional therapy.
Right.
So I want to sort of summarize the general theme of what you said. I think your approach is that you are more of a guide and an educator and someone who forms relationships with people. But a lot of people have, in the public, the layperson has the perception of either physio or chiro as you go to them and they heal you or they fix you.
Yeah.
So I think for people that perceive the professions that way, online care makes very little sense until you start to factor in that humans can heal naturally, that sometimes all they need is a little bit of guidance, and that they don't need to be cracked back into place, or they don't need physios to do this magic, type of massage to make them feel better. That online care starts to make a little bit more sense when you look at it that way.
Well, and the thing with me, there's a few different things that make online care a little more realistic with the people who pay attention to me. And that would be, one, my patient demographic is pretty much exclusively chronic pain. So they don't need me to make an argument for online care, because everybody I work with has tried everything. Like, they've been to multiple physios, multiple chiros, massage, acupuncture. They've had all the core stability programs in the world. They've bought McGill, and then they went and bought Move You, and then they went into Squat You, and they've watched every video and tried every free exercise. Like, the people who come to me, they're landing on me because they're just like, I guess I might as well just talk to the guy on the computer, because I've done all of this other shit. So that, for me, it's not as hard to sell. And then the other thing, the unfair advantage I have, is being someone who is really aggressively involved with social media. People who book with me have usually been listening to me for anywhere from 2 weeks to, I just had a person, my first patient this morning, told me they've been listening to me for 2 years. And so, like, for them, they kind of know my whole MO, that people don't need fixing, and that a lot of times we just have to take a step back and figure out what are the impediments to recovery here, and there are ways we can move around them, and a lot of that can just be done by talking through it, making sense of it, coming up with some kind of sense of direction forward, because a lot of times people are spinning their tires or going in 5 different directions at once. But yeah, it's a lot easier for me in that sense, just because I do have that big body of work as far as social media stuff out there that people follow. And then when you work with chronic pain, they've already tried all the other in-person stuff.
Right. You already have people that have bought into what you believe, and
like
what
long before I ever talked to them. Yeah.
Right. So I want to challenge you a little bit here. What sort of population do you think you might not be as well equipped to serve? Whether it might be people coming off of a surgery or a certain type of demographic. Are there any types of people that you think that you might want to refer out?
Yes, but not specifically because of the telehealth reason. Because I don't take post-op cases, like immediate post-op. I don't take those because I just don't feel confident to do it, because I don't really have any experience or training in that. But like, I know people who do remote telehealth for like post-op ACL. Like Steph Allen has a whole platform dedicated to that. Right. So like, it's not a telehealth problem. That's a me problem. And then I also typically don't take acute cases. Like, I'll see them and I'll talk to them, but I typically, like, knowing what we know about acute stuff, my approach for a lot of them is to give them like some very basic advice and tell them they're probably going to be fine in 8 weeks. And there's not really a lot that they can do to speed up their trajectory, but there's sure a lot they can do to slow it down. So here's the things to not do. Go on your way. And if you're still having trouble in 8 to 10 weeks, you can hit me up then, but I don't think you actually need care. Like, that happens a ton of people consult with me and don't actually end up working with me. It's just one-off advice and they're done. And they have, again, totally fine outcomes, because a lot of them are dealing with self-limiting problems that we're going to get better whether they talk to me or not. So it's not that they're not appropriate to work with me. It's just like the way I approach things and the way I see best practice in those cases. I'll talk to them and give them some advice, but they don't need to, like, quote unquote, work with me or get intensive guidance or anything like that. Outside of that, I don't think there's really any that stand out to me that I'd be like, no.
Cool.
I don't know if there's any that you can think of, but
the main thing I did think of was just post-op care. But I get why you can have successful outcomes with someone online. I think, as you said earlier, there might be some more constraints that you have to work around.
Yeah, and it's not something I've looked into either. So like, I don't know even what that looks like. I don't know, comparative effectiveness of those approaches versus in person. I don't know any. I've never even looked at it, just because I don't plan on doing it. So, but I know it exists, and there's probably something to read on it. So that maybe that is something I should take a peek at, not to do, but just to be aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't doubt that you will dive into it
at some point.
Speaking of like you diving into the literature, you do that, and then I think in other people's perspective, you might bash with air quotes things like foam rolling, massage, cracking back, stuff like that. And I had a conversation with Alexi, No Bullshit Physio, the other week, and we were talking about how a lot of the times when we question things like this, it's not about whether they can work to help someone who's in pain. It's more so about the mechanisms at which people are claiming that they work, whether it's cracking someone's back and you feel better because you've put them back into place, or it's foam rolling and you're breaking up muscle knots or adhesions or whatever you want to call it. We question those mechanisms, but not necessarily how valuable they are. So if you have someone who has this acute new pain or injury that you believe should just get better through natural healing in 8 weeks or so, do you give them advice of what they can do to relieve their pain? Like foam rolling, massage. Do you ever recommend stuff like that to people?
Yeah, I'm the king of hot packs, and then the self-administered like portable cheap TENS units. I love that shit. I have no problem with any of it. I have a problem with needling and acupuncture just because it's like, I understand that it probably works for pain as well as anything else. I hate saying that, but like you're stabbing someone needlessly. Like to me, that shit's just dumb. People can push back and be like, oh, but no, I think that shit's just stupid, and that's my own personal belief. But outside of that, like I don't really have a problem. And the thing is, if you watch my videos where like I'll go through and try to debunk some of those narratives, you can, if you go into it with that understanding, you can very clearly tell that I'm only going after the narrative. And a lot of the time, if you actually listen to my words, which it feels like people never do, you'll hear me say in almost every one of those videos that one, it's fine if people do it. And a lot of the time I'll even be like, and it can help. And I'll literally say that. And I'll be like, it might give you some temporary relief. It might make you feel a little bit better. I will literally say that, but people will miss that and be like there's a video I put up right now that's getting close to 1 million views on TikTok. It's a stupid ass 6-second trend. And there's just some writing on the screen about how cracking spinal manipulation is just like cracking a knuckle. Nothing's really changing about you physically or happening. It's just, you're just pushing on a joint that's sensitive and hoping it feels a little better. And that's like the crux of what the writing on screen. And the bulk of the comments from people are, well, if it didn't work, then how did the chiropractor like save my life? Or if it doesn't work, then why does chiropractic still exist? Like most of the viewers not even realizing I am a goddamn chiropractor, but it's there's really not any times where I'm like, no, it doesn't work. It's usually just me saying, no, I just wish we wouldn't explain it that way because that's wrong and potentially harmful. But
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's like I think you unfairly are criticized for being a nihilist and someone who thinks nothing works, which is not.
I don't get that at all because like isn't being a nihilist, isn't that like nothing matters?
Nothing matters. Yeah, like
if I thought nothing mattered, look how fucking hard I try. You know how many videos I've made? You know how many hours I put into trying to just give free public pain education? It's if I didn't think anything mattered, why the fuck would I be doing that?
Right.
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I know. When I hear your content or someone like Alexi's content, when they're questioning these things, it's not that. Like, I think it's so natural for people to think that you're just bashing these things and that you're coming up with a solution. But it's just questioning the mechanisms. Because as you said, these things can be harmful when people believe that they have to go to someone to get their back put back in place in order for their pain to be relieved. It makes them feel dependent, or it can at least. So
well, it's not even like, yeah, it can be harmful for sure, but also like just beyond that, like if we've got evidence that clearly suggests that it's just flat out not correct, shouldn't we, again, like holding your own profession to be like being accountable and responsible, because we owe that to the public, like shouldn't we be trying to be correct, even if we're not worried about harming them, noceboing them, or whatever the fuck? Like, shouldn't we, if we know that this stuff is out there that really pokes a lot of holes in a lot of those narratives, like what's wrong with just trying to be right? Because people deserve to have correct information. Like if I'm fucking getting involved in the stock market and somebody's telling me, you know, some backwards ass narrative that like I still might get a positive outcome, but the information's incorrect, I would like to know that, because I want the right info. Like people have a right to if it's available, be hearing that. And if someone's being told something that's objectively false, they have the right to hear that perspective. And it's like, it's kind of our responsibility to call that kind of shit out like every chance we get, because we're part of it, you know?
100%, man. So let's apply that. Let's pretend that we're talking to the lay person here, because I think there's a lot of people that don't understand how cracking a back works, what it is. So let's dive into that. What is it? How does it work? What can it do? And what can't it do? Or what doesn't it do?
What is it? It's where you push on someone's back and it makes a popping noise. And what is it doing? Sometimes when something hurts, if you touch it in a certain way, it might feel better. And if you touch it in a different way, it might feel worse. And we're hoping that touching it in this way might make it feel a little bit better. How does that work? I don't know if we really, really, really know, but I always like to describe it as if your neighbor is having a real loud house party and you're trying to go to bed, they got the music turned up real loud. That music is pain, okay? And you want to go to bed. So you can't be a dick and go over there and unplug it, just like we can't just unplug our own pain, although that would be nice. So instead, what do you do to try and take some of that sound away and blur it out so you can get some sleep? Put your headphones in and turn on your own music to blur it out. That's kind of what we might be doing with massage or back cracking or scraping or whatever. We might just be providing a different stimulus to blur out what we're feeling right now. Maybe it helps us feel something a little different for a little bit. That should also explain to people why, you know, people are always like, yeah, but you always have to go back. Well, no shit. It didn't change anything. It just blurred it out for a bit. Eventually, It was just a 2-second thrust. It ain't going to last forever. You're going to go back to feeling what you were feeling probably pretty soon. And I always like explaining to people too with the whole cracking back thing. A lot of the time when people feel like they experience miracle outcomes, you have to understand, and I talk about this a lot in my post in very lay terms, the natural history of a lot of this stuff is a matter of weeks. And usually people don't seek care immediately. Usually they're like, oh, it'll get better in a week or two. So they wait it out. Then by like week 2 or 3, they're ready to go book an appointment. So when they book the appointment, they get in there a week later. Now they're on week 3 or 4. They might be over halfway through the natural history of what they're dealing with. They get 1 round of treatment, or maybe they don't even do that. They have the consult and they go back the next week for the actual treatment. Now we're on week 4 or 5. You get that treatment. Now a week later, you go for the follow-up. Now you're on week 5 or 6. You might already be at the end of the tunnel and feeling a hell of a lot better. You'll probably attribute that to the fact that your back got cracked. But the reality is a lot of time has now passed. And whether you went in or not, you're probably going to be feeling pretty good by that point anyway, which is what we need to be mindful of when we, start seeking help and attributing some of these outcomes to some of these interventions that probably mechanistically can't actually do the things that we're being told that they're doing.
For sure. So, yeah, people with like neck pain or something, maybe that the course of their neck pain might last 6 to 8 weeks if they hurt their neck, and it's been like 4 or 5 weeks. So they decide to get a new pillow, and then their neck pain starts getting better and better, and they attribute
son of a bitch. That pillow is magic. I'm gonna go buy 10 more.
Right. So you mentioned that house party analogy, which I really like, and I think it's interesting because, putting in the headphones in to block out that music, it's not the only option. If your window's open, you could close the window.
Ooh,
Turn
nice.
you could turn up some white noise or something.
Nice
Right?
one. Yeah, like
Does
the
it
window.
matter? Does it matter where you get your back cracked in order
Location?
Yes.
No.
Why not?
I know you already knew the answer, you weasel. Why not? Because it's not contingent upon like finding a misalignment or a restriction and fixing or removing it. It's just contingent upon applying a different sensation than pain to a painful body part. And sometimes even a region away from the painful body part, which in those cases probably has more to do with, again, natural history and people's expectations rather than the actual treatment being applied. Like in those cases where the studies are showing that like I could crack somebody's mid back and they could experience relief for their neck pain.
Yeah.
In those cases, I'm like, shit, I probably could have rubbed peanut butter on their ass and given them relief for their neck pain. Like, who knows? Probably doesn't have a lot to do with the treatment being applied. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's funny. So one thing we didn't say is what does cracking someone's back or neck not do? And where I wanted to get at that was that the common claims are that people are out of alignment. Something happened to them, and just naturally their back is sort of out of alignment or their neck is out of alignment, and cracking someone's back or neck puts it back into place.
My new fun take is I just say it doesn't do anything. And the way I prep my counter argument when they're like, yo, it obviously does something. I just say, okay, hey, if your arm itches and you scratch it, and now it doesn't itch because you scratched it. Yeah. Does scratching and itch do something? Like, does it do anything? Just provides a little stimulus to feel something different than itch, right?
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
What actually happened? Did it do anything? Right. No, it just depends on what you mean by do. Like, did it do something? And no, it didn't. It didn't change you in any way. It didn't. Yeah, it's like a party trick.
Right. Like when you say do something, when you scratch an arm, it's not like this massive systematic change all throughout your body. It's not that you had dysfunctional skin cells.
That's why I don't even view it as a treatment. It's like. That's why I remember I heard Peter O'Sullivan one time say that it's not treatment. Back cracking and all these other adjunctive therapies are not treatment. They're like sprinkles on ice cream. They're a little fun side extra, but they've never been needed to get somebody to recover from anything or to, get somebody out of a bad situation. That's never going to be the thing that saves the day. And if it ever seems like it is, there's probably more to that story than that.
Yeah, that you're just not accounting for.
Like scratching arm. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's a good analogy. So you said earlier that you don't mind when people use spinal manipulations or cracking someone's back.
I do it when I'm drunk as a party trick. Do it all the time. Not to innocent people, just to my friends.
Right. So if anyone listened to our conversation there, the idea there was that we were questioning the mechanism behind how it believes. We don't have anything wrong with you itching your arm if it's itchy, right? And there's nothing wrong with getting some temporary pain relief if it's in the form of
just trying to change what you feel, seeing it. Right. And if I was still in person and I was somebody who, if I was in person, I still wouldn't crack backs, to be completely honest with you. But if I was in person and I was cracking backs, the way I would communicate it is I would straight up be like, first of all, I would never just outwardly offer it unless the patient asked for it. But then if they did, I'd be like, yeah, we can do that. Might see if it makes things feel a little bit different for a little bit. Really nothing to it. It's like taking a cough drop for a sore throat, right? Mm-hmm. Do you expect that cough drop to make your sore throat go away quicker? No, but you're hoping that you maybe get 30 minutes to half an hour of relief. And obviously that still has value for some people because people are still fucking buying cough drops. So it's not like this is useless or anything, but that's probably how I would pitch it. Cough drop for a sore throat, scratching an itch on my armpit, those kinds of things.
Love it. Cool. So I have one more question. What is the difference between physiotherapy and chiro? Because most people would think that it's this whole cracking the back thing. And in a way that's true, because not all physios are licensed to be able to crack someone's back. But you know, if you,
what a hilarious thing to need to be licensed for.
Yeah.
I think I accidentally cracked my mom's back when I gave her a hug this morning. Like, that's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, but it comes from the idea that it's so specific, and it's this highly skilled technique where you're putting something back into place. And don't get me wrong, like some of the sort of stuff I couldn't do it because I've never trained it. You know, like the
you
whole.
Could do it.
I could learn. I could learn. Okay.
Oh God.
Okay, so yeah, what's the difference between a physio and a chiro in your mind? Do you think there is a difference? Do you think there should be a difference?
Well, yeah, obviously there's a difference because one of them is a little bit more funny than the other sometimes, maybe more creative. The drunk uncle. I don't know. If we're following, I always say the same thing. If we're following the evidence and we're all reading the same research and we're all following the same guidelines, then we should probably all be doing the same stuff. And beyond that, I think, the only other difference is I think you see more physios in hospital settings and doing post-op work and like neuro and cardio. Like that's a little bit more specialist training. That's pretty cool. And then with chiro, you see this wide, diverse crowd of horseshit because state by state scope is different, like depending on where you are. So it is literally like you could walk into 100 different offices and have like 100 totally different, equally terrible experiences. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's not the stuff I'm interested in, though. Like, as far as similarities and differences, the only part that I'm interested in is the fact that if we're all reading the same research, we should probably be doing the same shit.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing about that is that we see similar types of people, right? We see people in pain who are injured, mm-hmm. and maybe there's not the most optimal best way to treat somebody, but there are options that have support from the scientific literature that are better than others.
Well, and the bottom line is like we don't even need to put that pressure on ourselves. All we have to do is be aware of, okay, what has some support? There's a lot of things that do.
Yeah.
Let's just make our patients aware of what the options are and what their trajectory is, and let them, when there's an option to do nothing, make sure that they know that that's an option too. Because patient-centered care ultimately comes down to empowering the patient to be aware of what they can do about their problem and how you can help if they want you to help, and then kind of letting them pretty much guide that based on their own values, their own goals. Like all we can really do is give people those options, communicate it honestly, lay it out on the table, and then try to guide them through that tough time in that sense. But like patient-centered care is to just give a rigorous informed consent and then see where that leads you.
I love it. Yeah. Make it about the patient, just educate them, make sure they understand their options.
Yeah.
Don't pressure them into any one course of treatment.
I usually pressure people out of working with me.
I love it. I don't know how you stay in business.
Yeah, I'm not a great businessman, but hey, that's what that telehealth course is for.
Right.
Keep me alive.
Feel free to plug that because you do teach people how to
see how good of a businessman I am.
There you go.
Slip it in.
Yeah. You teach people how to be better online practitioners, right? It's
just a little course that's meant to show people how easy it can be to implement telehealth, whether they want to make an entirely online practice or they want to integrate it into an already in-person practice. The point of the course that people will realize when they get to the end of it is I'm trying to show you that it does not have to be hard. And if you just cover the basics that I include in there, you can practice at this same level that I am, which I think is a good level to be at. And it's not hard and it doesn't have to be complicated. So, that was the whole kind of crux of that thing. But now hopefully I get a sale. We'll see.
Yeah, at least one. And I could be wrong here, but I think I saw Jared Powell give you a good review on it. So there has to be something to it.
Yeah, Jared looked at it. I've had a few other people too. And then obviously like Jake Harden, who I think is just the best of the best of the best, like was involved in making it and is kind of like my partner in all of the things I'm doing. As far as business and as far as working on projects, like he and I got our wagons hitched up and we're trying to put out more good stuff like that. So the fact that he was involved should tell people that like it's not shitty. You don't have to worry about like you're like, oh, Aaron, he's kind of sketchy, what a freak. Don't worry about that. Just know Jake had a hand in it, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, what's he up to these days? Because I know I used to follow him on Instagram a while ago, and then like I see you mentioning him. Just
makes me laugh. Yeah, he's been quiet on the internet for the last couple of years, but he's one of my best friends. I've got him stirring a little bit. I just met with him for 2 hours on Monday. We got some stuff that we're cooking up, but he's up to things. Just a little bit less public, which sucks because like I truly think the first thing I do when young clinicians or students or whatever reach out to me for help, or they're like they want to learn like my approach, or they want to get more into like rehab or supporting self-care or whatever in their practice. The first thing I always tell them to do, I say, go to Jake Harden's page and go through every single post, but most importantly, read every single caption that he's written in the last like 2.5 years. And if you do that, you'll immediately feel like you have a better sense of like how to help somebody through a difficult time, even if you're not right there with them. I think his stuff's the best. So yeah, it does suck that he's in a bit of a super long hiatus, but I've got him stirring. He might be out of it. We'll see.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, high praise. And you know, you obviously know him a lot better than I do, clearly, but I don't know him at all. So, but his content, like I used to follow it years ago, and it was really, really, really great stuff.
What sucks is his stuff he made. Like I fucking hate exercise videos. Mm-hmm. I used to do them myself. I hate them. I hate making them. I hate watching them. I hate how little nuance there is. I hate how they're just totally abstract and there's no utility, because it's like, who is this fucking for? Just knee pain, just shoulder pain, just like they drive me insane. But what his videos were was like, it was all exercise videos, but there was so much value in like the way that he would talk through all the different ways he could apply every single thing that he was showing to the general public. Like I've never seen anybody that good at communicating in mass, like the nuance of exercise prescription in lay terms. Like
it's so easy to understand.
Yeah, it was really impressive what he had going there, which is also why I understand why I got some burnout towards the end, because that's really hard to keep up pumping out that high of quality for that. Nobody else, like if you look around, the only other people that are doing what he was doing is E3. And that's pretty much it. Nobody else is putting out like that nuanced of stuff with that much value packed into every single post. So
yeah, and they got a whole team. I don't know if Jacob did, but
no, Jake's fucking lone wolf. I'm the most team he's had in the last in his whole career actually. So that's why I'm trying to get him going. We'll see.
Please do. Appreciate it. All right. Anything else you want to share before we hop off?
No, just buy my goddamn course. I need more money, so hopefully people do that.
All right. Cool. Well, great talk, man. I really appreciate it. It was good to finally meet you, and be well. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you once again for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a review. If you would like to follow me on social media, you can follow me at noahmandel.physio on Instagram and TikTok. Have a wonderful day, and remember to keep moving forward.